Breaking news. Long cries with pride at his baby's first birthday. Fans in shock. In a scene that unfolded like a dream beneath soft fairy lights, actor Long's gaze glistened with a tide of emotion as he celebrated his baby's first trip around the sun. It was a day meant for cake and laughter, but it transformed into a breathtaking symphony of tenderness that left fans around the world astonished by the rawness of a father's heart. A room dripping in soft light. The venue was unexpected. A quiet courtyard draped in twinkling lanterns, petals strewn across low wooden tables, a hush beneath hanging vines that seemed to hold their breath. The air smelled of honey and tenderness, as though the world had chosen to soften just for this moment. Long arrived holding his child, wrapped in a pastel blanket that whispered of innocence. The baby reached for a floating balloon, chubby fingers brushing the pastel surface with fascination. Behind them, a canopy of sheer fabric and fairy lights created an ethereal halo, turning them into a living portrait of love and legacy. 2. The cake and the candle. At the center of the courtyard stood a single-tiered cake, decorated simply with a tiny fondant star and the number 1 perched atop. It was delicate, unpretentious, yet brimming with the weight of the milestone it marked. Long lifted his baby onto his hip as acquaintances gathered around, their laughter a soft murmur in the warm dusk. His eyes, however, stayed fixed on the candle's flame, flickering and fragile, yet brave.
He bent close and whispered something.
The baby cooed, mesmerized by the shifting light. The flame danced in the reflection of Long's eyes, igniting something deeper than ceremony. He took a breath. 3. A tear that spoke volumes. Then it happened. Just one tear, graceful and unplanned. It traced down his cheek. There was no spotlight, no fanfare, no scripted speech. But that tear carried everything. Years of longing, nights of quiet wonder, the ache of responsibility, and the warmth of fulfillment. Friends saw it and hushed. Cameras clicked. Smartphones turned cameras toward the scene, but none could capture the gravity of that single, shimmering drop. Long pressed his baby closer, his voice catching as he said, just barely audible, "My heart, my world." And in that gaze, the courtyard transformed. It was no longer a party. It was a quiet sanctuary of love. For time paused, hearts moved. Around him, guests stopped laughing. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The baby waved a chubby hand at the flame, reaching but unsure. Long scooped them closer, guiding, protecting. Then he smiled, soft, eyes bright. The sort of smile that leaves no doubt where the heart lives. A hush settled. A mother nearby dabbed at her handkerchief. Another guest's breath stuttered with wonder. All planets shifted for that second. Social media erupts. Within minutes, the images emerged online. Fans watched the video looped like a lullaby. Long's tear, his whispered words, the candle flickering like a heartbeat. Comments poured in. "I never thought I could feel so much from one moment. Fatherhood suits him. That tear is everything." He cried with pride. "Isn't that just the most human thing we've seen?" Fans created slow-motion edits, overlaid piano tones, framed the tear like a gemstone. Some drew fan art, Long cradling his baby under moonlight, the tear glowing like a star. 6. Inside the courtyard, the private ripples. Those present later whispered that Long had spent the afternoon balancing rehearsals with parenthood. He had just wrapped a scene on set earlier that day, his heart already tethered to home. He texted off camera, "I can't miss this day." And there, beneath lanterns and petals, a performer and a parent merged. The roles dissolved. What remained was a man ravished by love. Someone beside him offered a hug. He shook his head, eyes bright, and whispered, "It's perfect." And he meant every syllable. 7. A silent promise. Guests shared that when the flame finally surrendered, Long lifted the baby and gently moved their finger through the extinguished wick's memory. He said something only they could feel. A promise.
No cameras caught that.
No post captured it. But in that courtyard, under soft light, a vow was spoken. I will always be here. And the baby gurgled, unaware yet cradled in that promise. 8. Fans speak back. On Weibo and Instagram, fan messages flooded. He cried with pride, fans in shock, because we never expected such honesty. This is not acting. This is real. This is him. Even those who followed for glitz were moved. Their posts reflected disbelief and joy. 9. Why it resonated. Because it wasn't a performance. It was a confession. A tear unfiltered. A father laid bare. In a world of staged moments and polished segments, this was spontaneous. Unveiled.
Alive.
It reminded fans that behind the roles, award shows, and red carpets, Yulong loves. He worries. He hopes. He cries with pride when his baby turns 1. What this means now. This moment changed everything. Career headlines still jockey for attention, but now they carry a new light. Paternal presence. Interviews followed with gentle questions. How do you balance? Yulong answered softly. The heart knows where it belongs. Fans now wait for glimpses of nursery visits, lullabies hummed during car rides, sleepy giggles behind stage doors. Parenthood, it seems, has become both his anchor and his art. This wasn't a headline. It was a heartbeat shared. Epilogue. In that courtyard, under gentle glow, Yulong's tear became a mirror. A reminder of all that matters beyond fame. He didn't cry for fame. He cried for love. He cried for first milestones and whispered dreams. He cried for the tiny person in his arms who changed everything. That tear will ripple through time. Because sometimes the most human things, quiet, unguarded, beautifully simple, leave the deepest mark. Yulong's tear, a deeper moment that shook the world. As the last shimmer of candlelight faded into a curl of soft smoke, Yulong stood in the center of the courtyard, motionless except for the slight rise and fall of his chest. His baby nestled in his arms with a kind of peaceful wonder only a child could carry. But Yulong, he was somewhere else entirely. The tear that slid down his face was not loud, not dramatic, not planned. It was quiet,
Honest.
and somehow that single tear echoed louder than any applause ever could. Behind him, the world was watching. Phones recorded from different angles. Guests stood like statues, unsure whether to smile or cry themselves. There were no fireworks, no speeches. Just a man, a father, caught in a moment so profound that it wrapped everyone who witnessed it in stillness. And then he spoke again. A father's whisper. He bent his head toward the baby's ear, his voice softer than the wind rustling the leaves overhead. You don't know it yet, he murmured, but you saved me. The child reached upward, as if trying to catch his words. Yulong pressed a kiss onto the tiny hand, then closed his eyes. Around them, lanterns swayed. Shadows danced. Every color seemed warmer. The moment did not need to be explained. It simply needed to be felt. A friend approached from behind, hesitating, then stepped back. It was clear to everyone present that something sacred was unfolding. From actor to father, Yulong had spent years captivating audiences. He had played warriors, princes, detectives, artists. His face had launched campaigns, his performances won awards. But in that moment, none of that mattered. He was not an icon. He was not a character. He was a father. And the world saw it. This was not rehearsed. Not captured on a film set. This was not between takes. This was life, rising through his chest, pushing past any fame or filter. It was rare. It was real. And it was irreversible. The baby's gaze. The child blinked slowly, staring not at the crowd, but directly into Yulong's eyes. There was no fear. No confusion. Only comfort. Yulong's hands adjusted the blanket gently, ensuring not a strand of hair touched the child's eyes. He moved as though the baby were made of stardust and porcelain. The baby giggled softly, tilting their head. That sound, small and sweet, broke the silence. It brought laughter back to the courtyard, gentle and respectful. But that moment, it stayed. The tear had fallen. The emotion had rooted itself deep in the earth beneath their feet. Photos that broke the internet. Within an hour, images from the birthday flooded every corner of the internet. One photo captured Yulong standing beneath the twinkling canopy, the baby in his arms, the tear still fresh on his cheek. Another caught the soft kiss he placed on the child's forehead, his eyes closed, as if anchoring himself to that very second. The photo was shared in fan groups and news feeds alike. Headlines glowed in admiration. Messages poured in from fellow celebrities, parenting groups, former co-stars. Comments exploded. "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. He's not just acting anymore. This is real life. And he's glowing in it. That tear, that one tear says everything words never could." Across the city and the world. Back in the city, news outlets scrambled to share the story. Talk shows paused to mention it. Fans in cafes watched clips replayed on phones. In classrooms and train stations, people whispered about the transformation of a man who once dominated screens, now brought to tears by the weight of love. There were no scandals, no controversies, just stillness, reverence. Across oceans, fans translated captions. Edits in every language appeared within hours. Yulong's tear began trending on platforms from Tokyo to Paris to Sao Paulo. The party continues, quietly. After the flame went out and the last guest dried their eyes, the party continued, but not in noise. It unfolded in whispers and gentle laughter, in the clinking of cups and the soft patter of baby feet on the garden floor. Yulong changed into a lighter shirt, carrying his child as he moved through the guests. He accepted hugs, not as a celebrity, but as a man deeply moved by the moment he just lived. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. Every look he gave the child spoke louder than language. Later that night, at home, the lights were dimmed. The baby had fallen asleep, holding tightly onto one of Yulong's fingers. He sat in the rocking chair beside the window, the city lights outside blinking like distant stars. He rocked gently. His eyes still held traces of emotion, but his heart, it seemed, had shifted. He stared down at his child and whispered one more time, "I will remember this day for the rest of my life." He held the tiny hand a little tighter. The meaning behind the moment, what made it so powerful, was not just the tear. It was what it represented. For Yulong, this was more than a birthday. It was proof that time had passed, that love had grown, that life had changed him in ways no script ever could. It was the revelation that fatherhood wasn't just a chapter, it was the entire story. That 1-year-old had no idea their tiny birthday sparked a storm of tenderness across the globe. But one day, they would know. They would see the pictures. They would hear the stories. And they would know that their father cried on the day they turned 1. Not because he was sad, but because he had never been more proud. So once again, from all of us at K-Romance Central, thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe in love again, or if you just want to stay updated on every twist in this breathtaking saga, backhand index pointing right, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification button for more juicy K-drama updates. Because this is K-Romance Central, and here, we don't just report stories. We bring the romance to life. Sparkling Heart.